Alright, this is 6.2. We're going to convert between decimals, percents, and fractions. So you want to know that writing percent as a fraction, you're going to start with a percent, which shows that P percent right there, is whatever number you see as your numerator over 100 as a fraction. So let's do one for example. 25 is what I see. The percent sign tells me over 100. This can simplify by dividing by 25 on the top and bottom. And so this ends up being 1/4. So it can be written as a fraction, and then simplified you will. The next one will be what I see. Right, 15 is a decimal right there. What you see over 100. Even if it's got a decimal in it, and it's okay. This can't be simplified because there's a decimal number in it, and they can't both be divided. So we take the bottom one here, what we see. Come on, please move. Nope. All right, so you're going to take what you see, which is going to be 33 1/3 over 100. All right, so let's take all of these a little bit further, okay? What we see here on the bottom one is kind of an incomplete one, right? We've got a fraction involved in a fraction or in a division problem. So we're going to change this mixed number into an improper fraction by using our backward C. So 3 times 33 is 99. 99 plus 1 is 100. So I have 100 over 3 over 100, right? So what this really looks like is this first fraction divided by 100, right? Because all fraction bars mean divide. So when you do this, remember we keep it the same, change it to multiply, and flip this one over. And it was 1 over 100, so we're going to flip it over. So the problem we now have is 100 over 3 times 1 over 100. And I want you to see that in the diagonal you can divide by 100 and both of these. And so I have 1 over 1, or 1 times 1 over 3 times 1, which becomes 1/3. So this, as a fraction, is actually 1/3. Now we've accomplished the fraction answer in all three of these. But what we haven't done, right, we had percents, we had fractions, and now we've got to deal with the decimals. So every fraction is a division problem, which gives me a decimal. So I have 1 divided by 4, and that gives me 0.25, so I found my decimal. This one is going to be 15.5 divided by 100. Or you can take this and put it in decimal form. But just divide here and you would end up with decimal 155. And then 1 divided by 3 here ends up being a repeating decimal of decimal 33. So we're just dividing and putting them into decimals. All right, let's look at a different aspect of this. What if you have a fraction like this that you need to be putting into a percent? Okay, we've had a percent and put it into a fraction, and remember that all fractions are over 100. So if I know that this needs to be over 100, I now have a problem where I need to be able to solve it, okay? And this is actually called a proportion, and we'll start proportions in the next section. We're just kind of leading into it with these types of problems. So a problem like this, you are going to multiply in the diagonal from bottom to top and in the other diagonal from bottom to top. Notice that there's an equal sign. So when I multiply the red, 5 times x, this is what I get, right? And 5 times x is 5x. When I multiply in the other diagonal, which is the black diagonal, it's 3 times 100. Well, 3 times 100 is 300. Okay? And I need to divide by the number that is with the letter. So I need to divide both sides by x, and so, or by 5, and so I get 300 divided by 5, which ends up being 60. P is 60, which is actually 60%. So if I have a fraction, I now have a percent. How do I write 60 as a decimal? 60% is a decimal. Well, we can go back to the fraction and we can take 3 divided by 5 and end up with 0.6. Okay, let's do one more of those. I want 7/8 as a percent and as a decimal. So I could go ahead and do the decimal by taking 7/8 and dividing it, 7 divided by 8, and it's going to give me 0.875. Okay, for me to find my percent, I would take what I have and know that it needs to be over 100 for this to be my percentage. So what am I doing? I need to multiply, and this is kind of a shortcut, multiply in the diagonal where there's two numbers. So 7 times 100 is 700, and then you're going to divide by the number you haven't used yet. Okay, so multiply in the diagonal where there's two numbers, and then divide by the odd number out. So 700 divided by 8 gives me 87.5 is what P equals, which is 87.5%. Okay. Also in my notes that are scanned and uploaded is a table on the last page, page 3, that shows you percent, decimal, and fraction for some of the most common fractions that you'll be dealing with.